to another episode of the Grow Your Occupancy podcast. I'm Julie Podewitz, CEO and founder. Today, I'm really excited to welcome Dan Hutson to the show. Dan?
Hi, Julie. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I've been waiting for, I don't know how long, to have you on the show. So I'm glad you could carve some time out. Dan Hutson has a very prestigious, I think of it as having a prestigious storied career, many years in marketing as a marketing expert in senior living at Human Good and Claiborne Senior Living, and most recently at Priya Living as VP of Marketing. And Dan, for those of you who've been in the business longer than a minute, he is one of the leaders, I believe, the thought leaders in marketing, senior living marketing. So I'm really excited to kind of pick your brain, Dan.
Yeah, so with that kind of buildup, I hope I don't disappoint anyone out there, but
I should say,
I'll do my best.
if you take away anything, it'll be worth your time. Maybe I'll lower the bar just ever so slightly.
I try to be helpful. That is my goal in life, is to try to be helpful to others.
Well, so you've always been helpful for me. I remember the first time that I heard you speak, the first time I met you, I was at a conference and I went to your session, of course, and it was at Smash, and it was the very first year of Smash. You did, I think I did a session on hiring, how to hire for sales, and you did a workshop session. It was like they gave you like the full stage for a day, and it was on something really totally new, at least for all of us in the room and for the business of content marketing,
I
right?
remember
And you were
them.
like, okay, marketing's not just telling people who you are and what you do, it's content. And now, Dan, content marketing is everything. So I'm telling you, we're thought leader.
Well, and to be perfectly honest, it's senior living and marketing. Senior living is always about 3 steps behind the leaders, the leading industries out there. When you look at who's doing some really interesting marketing, and at the time that I was focused on content marketing, yes, it was relatively new, I think, to senior living, but it was definitely developing a pretty strong profile out there in other industries. And when I started looking at content marketing, it became immediately obvious to me that this was a critical component of any senior living marketing program, because what do people look to us for? Before they buy anything, they look to us for help. They look to us for our knowledge. We are supposedly the subject matter experts. And historically, at least in the past, senior living would gate really everything. You want to know what the
Yes.
price, you want to know what the offering is, you got to talk to a salesperson. You want to know what the pricing is, you got to talk to a salesperson. And the internet, other technology tools have made that impossible. The prospect is in the catbird seat. The prospect really is determining how they do their research, when they're going to talk to you, and we've had to adjust to that reality. And so now, it's nice to see that, most senior living organizations have fairly robust, helpful content. Where I think we're still lacking is in really doing compelling storytelling about the experience. To really, the way I always talked about it was, we need to demystify the senior living experience, because unless you've had someone living in a senior living community, you have no idea what that daily living experience is all about. And so I think we still need more content that looks at real people's stories, how they're using our product, and really take them behind the scenes to understand all aspects of the senior living experience. What do I do during the day? And understanding dining and understanding programming and understanding, how to properly evaluate when you're looking at your options. Because let's face it, there are a lot of senior living companies out there. There are a lot of communities out there. And unfortunately, we continue to do a really poor job of differentiating one product from the next. If I were to take any 10 websites, any 10 senior living community websites, and if I were to unbrand them, remove the logo, remove any mention of community names, you would be hard pressed to identify who that community was. You'd be looking at 10 websites and you'd say, I have no idea who this is, because they all look the same. They all talk the same. They all talk about the same things. So from a customer's perspective, that makes it really, you're not being helpful. You're making it that much harder for them to really narrow down their options and identify the place that's the right fit for them.
Mhm.
And so, and you're not giving people an opportunity to really discover what is unique about your community. And maybe there's nothing that's unique about your community, and that's the challenge. I think that if you're that hard pressed to identify what sets you apart from your competitors, you really need to look more deeply at your product and how you're continuing to evolve it, because it's not just about a housing answer. It's not just about a care answer. It's really about what's my living experience? How are you helping me achieve my goals and aspirations? By living there, what's my third stage of life going to look like? That's something that I think that increasingly this industry, I hope, is going to be more focused on. Focus more on the experiential offering and not just on, the housing piece and the care piece, because most people don't want to think about care. They want to know that it's there should they ever need it, but they may never need it. And the housing piece, unless you're offering some really fancy digs that compare well to my current home, I'm not really choosing you, based on granite countertops and, all the other, fancy things that go into
For your
an apartment.
fantastic apartment, right? It's, and I'm here. You're talking the D word, differentiation, and it's selling, so choosing, looking at senior living, very emotional, right? It's such an emotional process for everybody involved, and storytelling is emotional, right? It's telling the story, it's the experiences, like you said, a day in the life is, in my opinion, that's kind of the definition of connecting with someone emotionally, by telling a story or telling your story rather than giving me your bio or your resume. You tell me a story, you tell me about an experience you had at your last, you're in your career, or to really truly get to know someone and connect. So you would think that this is a senior living and retirement living is perfect for storytelling, right? And yet we're getting, I think we're definitely getting better. Definitely, it's just not quite there. I mean, what would you say, Dan? Like, what do you do? How does one do this? So if I want to make my website stand out a little bit more, what can I do?
Well, when you said it's an emotional purchase, I think that's one of the keys. The fact is that, people making this kind of decision, they make it based on emotion, and then they look for the facts to justify that emotional decision, like so many products. I mean, let's face it, people buy fancy cars, usually because there's this emotional reaction. Wow, what a great car, And then they look at, oh, but look, it's got this really great safety record, and it's priced more affordably than these other cars. But I think the problem that we run into is that we're not focused enough in our discovery and uh, in the experience that we deliver. We're not focused enough on what people's true core desires are, right? So what do people want at this stage of life? They want to stay purposeful, right? They want to continue to be valued by others, and they want to continue to add value in the lives of others. They want to stay connected. They want to stay engaged. They want to be part of a community. It could be your community, but chances are they think of community in larger terms. They think of family, they think of friends. They may think of where they live, their neighborhood, but they may also think of the larger community. And they may have played a very active role, in the lives of a lot of people. And now suddenly that's shrinking, right? So how do you help people stay engaged? They have things they haven't accomplished yet in their lives that they've always thought, at some point, I'm going to do this thing, or I'm going to spend more time doing something. So what are those unattained dreams or aspirations? It's almost like you need counseling. You need life coaches. You need counselors on staff who can help people really drill down and think about, how do I design that life at this stage of life? How do I design it in a way that I finally achieve, some level of transcendence? I become the person that I always kind of thought I was going to be, but maybe I haven't quite gotten there yet. I mean, how many people do you know in your life who tell you, oh yeah, I've done it all, I've accomplished everything, I'm exactly the person I want to be, I'm
Right.
satisfied. So
Right.
now
You're
I just want to sit
content.
around and do nothing. I mean, that that doesn't describe anyone I know. So senior living has an opportunity to really help people keep moving
Mhm.
up the pyramid, so to speak, to achieve that best sense of who they are, become that most authentic version of themselves. And if you only focus on, we have these nice apartments and we provide this care, I think you're really missing an opportunity, particularly if you are in active adult, if you're in independent living, because people moving into those levels of living, they're less concerned about care.
Mhm.
They're and
Right.
and they typically don't need to move into your apartment. They have, for the price point we're offering, they typically have very nice homes, you
Right.
know.
Yeah.
So how do you program for helping people become better versions of themselves?
So, Dan, if okay, and I don't have life counselors or life coaches or anything, and I don't have the budget for that. What I was getting, what do I do? One, and before I before I ask you, in my mind, I was thinking when you're talking, like, oh, what an opportunity for outreach, for business development. Like, how many, of us listening could think about, oh, who out in the community, in the local community,
Sure.
offers these types of services or potentially could, and is there an opportunity then to for great win-wins there?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the one of the improvements that I've seen in senior living is the recognition that we can't do it all ourselves. We need to collaborate with others. We need to build a network of supportive services. You know, people who are also addressing the needs of this particular cohort, right? And in the past, it's been largely building relationships with hospitals, building relationships with physician practices, other healthcare providers, uh, you know, building relationships with various vendors who can support us. But if you think more broadly and you think about, okay, but who are the experiential partners? Not just we're going to get on a bus and we're going to go somewhere and have a day trip and do something, but who can we work with where we can co-create these really amazing experiences that help people achieve their goals, help their desires. You know, something that I would love to see in a senior living community is, and I want to get back to budget in a second. One of the things I'd love to see is I'd like to see communities experiment with career centers, right? When you're in college, you've got a career center that helps you identify internship opportunities, helps you identify potential jobs when you're out of school. They connect you with potential employers. You know, as we continue to age as a society and we're a more mature society, and business recognizes increasingly that they've got to tap that elder market because they've got fewer 18 to 25-year-olds to rely on, there will be opportunities for us to, you know, help place people, help people develop that second or third career, you know, that they always thought, oh, when I'm done doing the thing that I earned a paycheck for, there are other things I'd like to do. And maybe I'll get paid for it, you know, because maybe I need to, or maybe it's something that I just do just for the joy of doing. Why not create career centers in senior living communities that help identify volunteer opportunities, internship opportunities, full-time and part-time job opportunities? You know, but when you talk about budget, here's the thing that I find really funny about that. As an industry, we will spend millions to build these communities, right? We'll spend hundreds of thousands on site location work, you know, getting property ready for construction. We'll spend millions to build these buildings. And yet we spend very little as an industry on programming, on designing and creating the kinds of experiences that will attract people to our communities. And when, again, you go back and you look at every community looking the same, think about what it would look like to be able to say, hey, you've got, you know, there's stuff you want to do. You know, you want that second, third career. You want to explore opportunities to, you know, do, you know, interesting work outside of what you have done for the last 30, 40 years. Well, we have people on staff who help you figure that out. We have connections out in the community where we can help place you. Why wouldn't you carve out some money instead of, you know, spending it on field trips or arts and crafts? I know, yeah, I mean, and I don't mean to disparage those things. I mean, there are plenty of people who love to do those trips and, you know, do those kinds of activities. But what about people, especially in active adult and independent living, what about people who have greater aspirations than that, you know? And you look at a community, there's such a wealth of intelligence, experience. I mean, the people living in senior living communities, they do have these amazing stories, these amazing lives. And it's a shame to let people who aren't ready to just stop, to let them, well, to let them just
To keep
stop.
going. Yeah,
Yeah. I mean, why can't we help them? Why can't we enable them to keep going? You know, I've met many, you know, really interesting residents who they want to continue to play a valuable role. But they don't have the tools, they don't have the avenues, and they don't have the support to find that thing. You get to a certain age and it becomes increasingly difficult, to find that next gig. And that's especially true of, an older adult, say in their late 60s, in their 70s, or even in their 80s, and they're still, super sharp and healthy, and they still want to contribute, and the avenues
Yeah.
for contribution are so limited.
Sure. I mean, our society, we are getting older, and from your lips, right, that we are hopefully valuing the life experience, and not that there's anything wrong. It's good to be any age, right? But 90 is the new 60, and that I think though we say those things to mean a positive, to mean that what we might have, what used to sound really old, and maybe it was when people the life expectancy was 60,
Right.
50 seemed old, right? And people have babies when they're 50, so I'm that we are aging, right? And that, what is a statistic? In 15 years there's going to be more people 65 plus than, right?
And
So
under 18.
A,
Yeah.
truth, right? B, does this parallel increased interest slash respect slash engagement of the someone regardless of their age, and that what I hear you say is that the differentiating and really elevating and engaging a greater number of people, which senior living needs to do, right, to continue to be viable and grow, is to meet people where they are, and offer life, to offer. And there's nothing wrong with, and everything great with care and wellness and all of those things that are in great meal experience and dining experience. But I would agree, what we lack is, not everyone, but is that engagement slash, and not to say people aren't working hard, but really what are we offering, and how can we do it? Like, think of partnering with others. Maybe you
Mhm.
don't have, or the budget's not there for two full-time. Like, I think to me, an executive director's position is way too much. So there should be an executive director
Yeah.
who works on the business side, and then a true resident concierge who does, the families, the residents, the resident experience, the family meetings, all of that. And I've said that out loud to a few CEOs, and the first thing I get is shot down. Well, we don't have the money for that. We don't have the budget for that. And to have one, I know we're getting off topic, but to have one person, an executive director, try to do all this is a recipe for failure. And I'm going to ask you, Dan, if you were CEO of a mid-size operator, how would you view, or how would you like a CEO to view marketing in his or her organization, the role of marketing?
So yeah, it's interesting because I think there are a number of members of the C-suite, not just CEOs, a number of members of the C-suite, and even some CEOs who have a fairly limited understanding of the role marketing can and should play in their organizations. Yes, brand identity and storytelling, you've got to craft a compelling brand narrative, that really resonates with your target audience. And we've got to do more to, create a more unique brand identity and voice and messaging, because frankly, there's very little differentiation out there, as I said previously. Doing more of that customer-centric research, to deliver an experience that aligns with people's core needs and desires, requires a much deeper understanding than you get of that prospective customer than what you get in just traditional sales discovery. Sales discovery is super important, absolutely. But to get the kind of information that then helps inform operational issues and helps inform your programming, sales and marketing should be doing that work so that they're able to share insights that help shape the product, right? To help shape so that you understand, I mean, at a very basic level, basic example, it's understanding what people like to eat, helps shape your dining menu. Well, understanding not just what people do in their day, but what they would love to do with their time, that kind of information should help shape your programming. Omnichannel, integration, I think people get a little too fixated on digital. Yes, digital is absolutely key, but it's one channel, right? You're doing social media, you're doing email marketing, you're doing digital advertising, you're doing content marketing, I hope, to create more of an inbound lead flow. You're doing influencer partnerships, referral marketing, experiential marketing. If you were building these really one-of-a-kind experiences that resonates with prospects, there's a lot of marketing opportunity in using those experiences. You need to be experimenting. I mean, marketing is a place where you should be bold, you should be creative, and you should be experimenting with different things. I know that there are other aspects of the business where they are more reluctant to experiment. I mean, for example, in care, it can be very challenging to experiment, in the area of care. But in marketing, you should be experimenting all the time. Revenue generation and growth. Obviously, this is the area where I think senior living does best. I think this is the area where the C-suite has the best understanding, that marketing needs to be closely aligned with sales and business development efforts, that marketing is contributing directly to revenue generation and growth, that we're creating highly effective lead gen strategies, that we're helping nurture prospects through the sales funnel, that we're doing our part in optimizing conversion rates. Those are all critical things. I think an area where we could definitely improve is brand advocacy and loyalty. We've got all these customers, people living in our communities who love, they love our product. They love what we're doing. Are we effectively using them as brand ambassadors, help not just as referrers, but actually being vocal advocates out there? And then the last thing is really, measurement and optimization. Obviously, marketing, like so many things, it's both art and science, but it needs to be data driven. You need to continuously measure, performance of campaigns, channels. You've got to have clear KPIs. You got to have the right analytics tools in place. It shocks me. I can't believe I still hear this. People saying, well, they don't really know where their leads are coming from because, well, they don't use call tracking, or they're not really using landing pages effectively, or they're not, they're using forms, but they don't know, where people are hearing about them. It kills me to hear that there are still organizations out there, because to me, that's marketing 101. You got to know where your leads are coming from. In order to budget effectively, you've got to know which channels are working. And so, these are all roles and responsibilities that marketing should have in any organization. The one additional thing that I would really encourage people to think more seriously about is, how is marketing helping you shape your product? How is marketing helping you improve your product? It is not an operations issue. Operations is part of the team, but marketing has the best sense of who that next customer is, and they need to be a voice in helping to shape where your product is going. And unfortunately, in talking to a lot of my colleagues in the industry, that varies widely. There are marketers who don't participate in those conversations at all. And then there are marketers in some organizations who are deeply involved in that, which is great. All marketers should be playing a role in shaping how the product evolves, because we are now serving generations that will not accept what the silent generation, the GI generation were provided. They had, honestly, they held us to a pretty low bar. You know, they were very grateful for what we had to offer. Unfortunately, my generation, your generation, the generations to come, they're going to be much more demanding. And senior living has to be ready to respond to those demands. Other businesses, technology, other businesses, other industries have taught people to be very fussy and very demanding. And we don't exist in a bubble. Okay. So we have got to be thinking about how can we be more responsive? How can we be more proactive in developing, designing, delivering products, services, experiences that anticipate what people want? I mean, that's one of the great things historically about Amazon, to use an overused example. I mean, they would frequently come up with, new offerings that you kind of thought in the back of your head, boy, it'd be really great if someone did that. And they did it. We need to have more of that kind of thinking. We need to be thinking about, what's that thing that people don't necessarily know that they want, but when they see it, they're going to salivate over it. We don't do enough of that kind of thinking. Okay, that was a really long.
No, Dan, I took notes. I don't know if you know if I'm scribbling, but one of my many takeaways though is how marketing should, or how does it? This is a good question, because the questions we ask ourselves, right, is what we should be the prompt thinking. And you've always, for me, and I know many people, you get me thinking. And I do want to thank you for that. And I do read your LinkedIn posts. And of course, we've had many conversations. I've been to many of your sessions. And sometimes it sounds like you're angry, and I'm being candid. And I know you're the nicest guy ever, but it's not that you're angry. I think it's like you've got such a passion for continual improvement, this strife for continued improvement. And I'm going to take your challenge on, and what role marketing plays and how your product evolves. So instead of being here's our thing, now go market it, it's how does marketing, and what have you learned? What have I learned in owning my own business and listening? Because you can't be responsive, because you said we need to be more responsive. Yeah, okay, but you can't be responsive if you haven't listened, and you can't listen unless you've asked.
Right.
So
yeah,
that's my takeaway today. And there's many of them, Dan, as you always have led us to continue, like I said, to really think and challenge ourselves and appreciate everything that this wonderful senior living and people that work in senior living and retirement living, active adult, do every day, and who they are as people. And to continue to ask ourselves and challenge ourselves, how do we serve today, and as important, tomorrow?
And to pick up and clarify, no, I'm not an angry guy. I'm a dissatisfied guy who sees incredible potential for senior living. I mean, we should be leading the charge out there in, you know, reinventing people's lives at this stage of life. We should be who people turn to. We should be the thought leaders. We should be the doers, you know, and and I feel like we're not achieving our potential as an industry. And so it may sound like I'm angry about that. No, I've been working in this space now for 15 years. I love working in this space. And I'm a closet optimist. People think I'm pessimistic. I'm really not. I'm very optimistic, whether we are forced to or whether we choose to. I think we are going to evolve, and we will do a better job of meeting people's needs, you know, as time goes by. And I love to be part of that.
I love it. Dan, I know you're not. I was putting it out there, kind of teasing you. You're one of the best, one of the greatest. Dan Hutson, marketing guru for senior living and any business. Thanks so much for joining me, Dan, and thanks all of you for listening. And if you are ever interested in anything that we can help serve you or your company, growyouroccupancy.com, please don't hesitate to reach out. Dan, again, thank you for spending time and chatting with me and sharing your wisdom and challenging us all to think.
Thank you, Julie. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.